Aaron on. So we're going to end up losing. Yeah. That's what? We're ready. Oh no. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Monday, April 17th workshop. We'll start right in with the Neighborhood Development Corporation. Glenn, let's turn it over to you and give us an update.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm Glenn Lyons. I'm the Executive Director of the Neighborhood Development Corporation. Abby Gilroy, our Director of Real Estate Development, is with us today. In the office, there are only 4 of us, so we work as equals, and she leads the development team. We also have 3 members of the board with us today. Councilman Gray, Matt Anderson, and Chris Johansson are all your representatives on the board. And so I'd like to very quickly walk you through what we've been doing, where we hope to be going, and Abby's going to help out with it as well. As you know, we're a 501c3 corporation founded through your initiative in 1999. We have a 28E agreement with you that has been amended a number of times. It's up for renewal next year. And we also now have a very small 28E agreement with Polk County that also is up for renewal next year. Our mission is to enhance neighborhoods and combat community deterioration through redevelopment. We try to act as a catalyst for private sector investment in neighborhoods. And our mandate includes Polk County, but all of our development work has been in the city of Des Moines, largely because of your 28E agreement. So thank you very much for that. Without that, we wouldn't exist. We act as a catalyst for neighborhood revitalization by investing in neighborhoods where the private sector isn't active. We have worked with historic buildings that require renovation and repurposing, more difficult projects or riskier. We work with sites that are difficult to develop. The environmentally contaminated sites just over the bridge on Indianola from the ballpark are examples of that. And more, we're introducing new forms of urban development, infill mixed use to the neighborhoods. That's likely to continue. Abby's going to run you through the projects we've done and focus a little bit more on the ones that we're doing now.
All right, good morning. Wanted to run through the projects. Some of these will be familiar to you as they're projects we have done really over the last decade here. We started a lot of our work out on 6th Avenue. We started with 2 historic renovations out there. We had Temple Building, which was a mixed use, some office space and apartments above, and then the Weary Building is at 6th and College, and that was some office space. Impact is in there now. We have a restaurant there and additional office space with a few apartments above there as well. The next page shows East Grand. We took a solid block of land there. I think those were picked up in pieces over a couple of years and redeveloped that entire stretch just east of the Capitol. And we've got different uses in there. There's retail, there's restaurants, grocery. They do very well there. A lot of traffic from the state capitol and such visiting those shops, which is really nice. And then Sebastopol Station is our Southeast 6th project. This is about the time that I joined NDC. That was the project we were working on at the time. Southeast 6th in Hartford, it's mixed use, about 12 apartments upstairs and then some retail, restaurant, and office below. So that project's proven to do well for us as well. The next one is Madison Flats and Jackson Crossing. These 2 projects are just over the bridge from Principal Park on Indianola Avenue, kind of that gateway into South Des Moines. And Madison Flats was about 1.5 acres of city-owned land, highly contaminated, struggled to be developed a couple of different times just due to the contamination. It was awarded brownfield tax credits, which allowed us to go in and remove that dirt and do the project there. It's a full housing project. It was stabilized, filled before we were finished with construction, and then sold off to a private investor here in Des Moines. Jackson Crossing, same thing. We sold that land to private investors here in Des Moines. Christensen and County put together a group. So that was, these 2 projects are great examples of what our model is trying to do, where we're trying to be the catalyst for private development. But if we can bring them in on the front end and use their funds to make a much larger impact into a project, we try to do that. So 2 good examples of developments that went very well and really created a new node, a new neighborhood in Des Moines. The next one would be Southwest 9th. We've been on that corridor plan, the Friends of Southwest 9th group, those sorts of things for over a couple of years now. And the feedback from the neighborhood is they'd like to see 3 properties be redeveloped, and so we focused really on those 3. It was a vacant lot, and then we had really an abandoned, blinded building just north of the high school, and then also across the street from the high school, Lincoln High School is what I'm referring to. Same thing, just abandoned building. And we were able to redevelop all 3 of those projects over the last 18, 24 months. So those have gone really well. They're leasing up. The 2 properties to the north are residential, and then the one at the south at 2619 across from Lincoln is 100% commercial. So we're just nearing completion on that and starting some leasing action there. We've had restaurants, mostly restaurants really, come by for leasing that building. Here's the other 2 buildings up close when I referred to the projects on Southwest 9th. The one on the left is Mary Todd House. That has about 8 units, and then McCrae Terrace has 6. Currently, we are working on Forest Avenue. If you've been by Forest and 32nd, we're doing some student housing. It's not student housing. We've actually had some just market residents lease up as well. So really open to anybody, but we've had some students leasing here too. We should be finishing construction towards the end of July, so students can move in August. Leasing's going really well there already without us being near completion. So 3 smaller scale buildings to help fit into the neighborhood. We worked with the neighborhood probably over 6 months, several meetings to try and get to this this ideal that would work for them as well. It started as a 4-story building, and it just wasn't quite the fit they were looking for. So successful project in that we were able to come to an agreement with the neighborhood and make something that kind of fits in with the historics of the Drake neighborhood, but into a scale that was appealing. So that was a success there.
How many units?
That's 50 units.
50?
Yep, within over 3 buildings. So they're just 2-story buildings. That site was kind of an odd shape, so we had to make a few different buildings to make it work. Streetcar Row, this is a project at Crocker 19th, across from Smoky Row. We bought this from the church pastor across the street. It's about an acre-sized lot. The old Planned Parenthood building's on it now. So we are right now developing a housing project there, for sale units. So a little bit different type of unit than we've done in the past. But it'll be a nice infill there. We've worked with the neighborhood there as well, and they've been receptive of this new plan for sale units. As far as a summary, this is summarized really on the next page, but we have about $57 million of development over the last two and a half years between Jackson Crossing, Mary Todd, McCrae Terrace, the Southwest 9th Retail, Forest Avenue, and Streetcar. So a total of really just 341 units, 4,500 square foot of commercial, and 57 million. So same with that Jackson Crossing project. I think I bought 2 acres from the city there as well. So we've been able to leverage our $1 million obviously very well over the last couple of years, and even getting some city-owned land off of your plate as well, and changing that into tax-generating land. So overall, last couple of years have been very successful, and we plan to continue. So I'll let Glenn talk about our community participation a little bit.
Thanks, Abby. We volunteer on a number of local boards. It's part of an effort to assist in neighborhood revitalization when we're involved in those areas, and to really be a good neighbor as we develop properties. I sit on 4 different boards. 2 of them, the Ingersoll and Grand Smith and the Friends of Southwest 9th, are directly related to your revitalization efforts on inner city commercial strips. Abby sits on 3 boards. The Des Moines South and East Chamber is a similar type of role. And she also is the vice president of your Economic Development Corporation. We do some consulting. Much of the consulting, nearly all the consulting in the suburbs is with that small Polk County 28E grant. But we also have done work for other people in the city of Des Moines. We looked at the feasibility of renting some older apartments on Indianola, south of Hartford. We are now working with Mainstream Living to look at how their buildings can be repurposed on South Union and McKinley when they're sold. We've been working with Drake University to help them develop their land south of University Avenue. And Abby's working with the owners of the Griffin Flynn building on a renovation that should convert it to mixed use.
What's the timeline on the Griffin building?
Let's see, we just received our Part 2 approval, so we'll be registering the project this month and starting probably May or June.
Thank you.
The university consulting job is probably the most exciting for us. University, well, we had been approaching university for years, but the new president agreed to work with us on a concept plan to develop or preserve, in this case of most of the historic houses, these blocks to create an urban neighborhood more like an East Village on University, so that the neighborhood could be more attractive to people wanting to to attend Drake, the families, alumni, etc. And we've been working with the university and the neighborhood association on that. Out of that has come a proposal call that we were asked to help with for blocks A and B, which are right across from Old Main. One is a grass lot next to the church, the other is parking. And down the road, if that RFP is successful, we'll be working with the university on the big parking lot, which is Lot D. The first project involves Nelson Developments. We ran an RFP. They won the competition. There's a memorandum of understanding that's been signed. We are 2 signatures away from the development agreement. I've been saying that for about 3 months, but you know what it takes to get a development agreement signed on what now is a $50 million development. The smaller block has a 100-room boutique hotel planned, and the block to the west where the parking is about 100 units of general population housing, not student-oriented, with restaurants at grade. If that happens, it's a $50 million investment on land that currently isn't taxed in the city, and a big plus for the neighborhood, and it should set up the development on that Block D. What's next? We're working on an east side project, and it's hard to do market housing on the east side, and we keep trying, and we'll find a spot. We've talked to a number of developers about building there, but the key is to do a market housing project if it's on Hubble with a commercial component. We haven't given up yet, but it takes a lot of work. We also own a little bit of land at University and 23rd next to the Come and Go. If we get the corner, we can do a small project there as well, but we've yet to get the corner. And we're hoping for that second phase of Block D on the Drake University as well. Beyond that, there are a couple of areas where investment is, we can see coming down the road, where we seem to be able to build low-income senior housing with tax credits and various kinds of federal assistance in this city, and by that I mean largely the private sector and nonprofits. And high-end senior housing pays for itself with private investment. There seems to be a missing middle in seniors housing, and with the baby boomers getting older, I'm afraid to say, and with people living longer, we're going to have to build a lot more housing. So there may be a role for us to try to find that middle path. So we're looking at that. We may leave it for people who are in that business to do if they find ways to hit that middle. And also infill housing. Your inner city neighborhoods shouldn't just be full of new rental apartments. Some of that investment has to be in ownership housing, whether they're 30-foot lot infill single-family homes or the townhouses that we're starting to do some work on. That investment is key to revitalizing some of those neighborhoods. And so we're hoping to do more of that. But once again, you have to find a way to make it work in the marketplace. That concludes our presentation, Mr. Mayor. We're happy to
All right,
answer
anybody have
questions.
anything? Christine, and then Bill?
You know, you just you touched on it, but you went quickly over it. I just want to underscore the role, Glenn, that you've played with as chair of Southwest 9th and helping us get the SMID put together. You were really an integral part, and I think that's one thing that between you and Abby, you really add a significant amount to those groups that are working to pull together a revitalization plan for the different corridors. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands. I mean, because how many different businesses did we have to go out and solicit signatures from, and you were always at the table giving direction and working with us. So,
Well, when we get into these situations where the neighborhoods have to organize themselves in ways that they haven't before, particularly when it's multiple neighborhoods in the commercial community, you look around the table and sometimes we're the only ones who've had an experience like this. But our other responsibility after a year or two is to turn it over to the constituents themselves as they learn how the organization runs, how it works with the city and the like, because it's their future more than ours. But thank you.
thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. This will be my fourth year on the NDC board, and I can't tell you how much enjoyment I've had having Glenn and Abby on there. And Abby, of course, glad to have you back, being on control. NDC does something that we can't get our major developers do. They go into areas that there's probably some high risk. Madison Flats, economically, was it? Not economically.
Environmentally?
Environmentally, thank you. I got caught right there. Nobody would go after that. Southwest 9th, you went through and took some dilapidated properties and starting to turn things around there. Developers aren't going to touch that. We've had in the Drake area, that 32nd and Forest area, been sitting there vacant for 10 years. So what they're doing is infusing some good things into the community. These are the kind of things that we really need to have, and I'm proud to be a member of the board. Look forward to all the exciting challenges you can keep putting in front of us year after year after year. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Let's move on now to neighborhood finance. Stephanie?
I thought that's word you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. And I'm Stephanie Prush, the Executive Director of Neighborhood Finance Corporation. I provided a PowerPoint. Some of the information in it is just for you to have, so you have some of those numbers. So I won't go over those in great detail. But if you have any questions, please stop me. And I just appreciate the opportunity to come share what we're doing at NFC. We have a couple of new things happening, so it's a great time to be here. Just as a reminder, our mission is to revitalize neighborhoods, and we do that through our lending primarily. We have a purchase, a refinance, and a home improvement product, and we use the 28E money that we're fortunate enough to receive from the city and the county for subsidy, and that's in the form of a $10,000 forgivable loan, or $20,000 if people are buying a house that's a multifamily and bringing it back to single family. We also offer some money for closing cost assistance, especially for lower income borrowers. This is a summary of our lending, but I have a page. So this is where you have the detail. I have a page that hits some of these highlights that I'll just go ahead to. But basically, we did 222 borrowers receive loans in 2016, a few less than 2015. But it's a good number for us because around there, it was $4.7 million of renovation lending is what it led to. The lending that we did, the average renovations that people do per loan is $21,000, and that sort of fluctuates every year between 19 and 22,000. We used $2.1 million, over $2.1 million in forgivable loan money. So we got 1.8. We have recycled that money over the years. About 45% of it has been recycled, so that's why we're able to use more 2080 money than we receive on an annual basis. Those loans were done in 38 recognized neighborhoods and really spread throughout the city, because you can see 23 is the most loans done in any neighborhood, and that's the Drake neighborhood, which covers a large geographic area. Union Park was second, and Highland Park was third. 61% of our loans are done in lower moderate income census tracts. We lend in all the low and moderate income census tracts of Des Moines, as well as the neighborhoods that are designated that may not be low or moderate income. and it's for any income for borrowers. It just sort of goes over how we are so fortunate to have the subsidy. I travel around the country and talk with other people, and they're like, we want to have a neighborhood finance corporation. And I'm like, well, the first thing is that we have had consistent support from the city and the county every year since our existence, and this is our 27th year. And that's what really makes it happen, to be able to have those funds that we can use as subsidy, and that it's not tied to particular income, so people that are of higher income that want to move into the neighborhoods where we're lending are able to, and the flexibility. We also are a CDFI, which is a U.S. Treasury designation, and that allows us access to funds, and we've received $5 million over the past. We didn't receive any funds last year, and we're not applying this year because we have enough. But that money allows us to have some flexibility with our loan products, and it is recycled. So then we're able to reuse it again.
And that's the CDFI
Yep,
piece.
that's the CDFI money.
And how much do you get from NeighborWorks? Because that's a key piece as well.
We get around $450,000 a year. Yes. Being a NeighborWorks organization provides us professional development as well as funding. And most of the funding that we get from them is also recycled money. It's money that we recycle. It's lending capital. So I wanted to share our newest program, which is called our Front Porch Program. And this was in response to the Capital Crossroads that came out. And in there it says there needs to be a more flexible home improvement loan program in the neighborhoods of Des Moines. And so what we did is we applied for the CDFI fund so we can underwrite these loans. People can have a lower credit score. They still have to be credit worthy, because we never want to give a loan to somebody that it doesn't appear that they have any means to pay it back, because no one wants that, because we really want to use this as a way for people to improve their credit. But also it provides funds for exterior repairs. So we have a list on our website, but basically anything on the outside, window, siding, a new garage, tear an old garage down, landscaping if it's functional. We're also hoping we can partner with the new green infrastructure program that you all will be launching soon on that. And the interest rates on this are 2% or 4%, depending on the household income. And then they also get matching funds. So potentially a family could get a 2% loan with half of it forgiven. So they could do quite a bit of repairs and have a low repayment to pay it back. So we're really excited about this program, and we've done about $500,000 in loans we have in process right now for it. And then this is like a pre-announcement, because we haven't done a press release on it, but we were fortunate because we're a CDFI and we are one of the largest nonprofit lenders in the country to receive a $3.6 million award through NeighborWorks. It wasn't open just to NeighborWorks organizations. And this will be for down payment assistance throughout Polk County. We're currently meeting with our lending partners. So if we're not lending in a neighborhood, but one of our lending partners is, then they can. So people outside of Des Moines will be able to access this. It's for households below 100% of the median income, which is about $70,000 for a family of four. We'll be meeting with realtors once we're ready to roll it out. We're hiring new staff that's starting in a couple of weeks, and we're really excited about the ability to bring this. Just to put it in perspective, they didn't announce what the other municipalities received, but I think the only other one maybe that received this was LA, Los Angeles. So for us to have the same per capita amount as them is pretty amazing, and I think it will have a real impact on the ability of people to access housing in Polk County in the next couple of years. And then I want to talk about a project that I think I talked about when I was here last time, but we entered into a collaboration with community housing initiatives to try to identify homes in the Viva East Bank neighborhoods, purchase those and renovate them and sell them for home ownership. One thing that we found is that there is a market. As Glenn mentioned in his, is that you need subsidy to do it. So we were fortunate to receive an award from NeighborWorks as well as the city of Des Moines to do this. And I have some pictures of, we built 2 homes without any subsidy to sort of kick it off. And then these are the first 3 homes. So just modest homes. The first one on Garfield was previously a rental that had been vacated, and the other 2 were bank foreclosures. And they were The second two, the East Ninth and the York, were on the market for maybe 48 hours. Garfield, it took a couple of weeks. So there's people that are interested in living in homes once they're renovated, and that's really exciting for us to know. And we've seen some increase in prices, but they're still very affordable homes. So this is the inside of the one on East Ninth, just to give you an idea. And besides making it pretty, you know, we do insulation, furnace, all the mechanicals, new roof if it needs it, so that they have a home that really will last them a long time. So we're excited about this program, and we're breaking ground soon. We've been working on the getting the land put together, but we'll be breaking land soon on Idaho, East Idaho and Washington, or Idaho and East Washington, in the Martin Luther King Jr. Park neighborhood. And then I just want to make sure everyone knows that we're having an event in the Drake neighborhood to celebrate some of the things that NDC is doing, as well as we have a home that was featured in a book. We were featured in a NeighborWorks book of exemplary organizations that are doing things, and so I hope that you all can come. It'll be a celebration with the Drake Neighborhood Farmers Market.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Just real quick, I think your program's fantastic. I think it's a model for our city. How do you promote it? I mean, how do we get some of the people
Right.
that have no idea that this is ever out there?
Well, always a struggle. We do go meet with realtors, so that works somewhat for purchases. We do, for instance, on the front porch, we are doing a mailing this week in the Martin Luther King neighborhood to about 380 homes, I believe. And we just did a large one of 450 to the McKinley
Sure.
School, Columbus Park. So we do some targeted mailings. We try to use social media as much as possible. And then every 6 months we have a homebuyer education event that we partner with Evan Clay Davis to bring people in. We're hoping that Project Reinvest, because that program will be housed with us, will really let a lot of people know, because they'll come learning about the down payment assistance, but they'll be on our website. So we're hoping that, and we have some marketing money. It's a struggle with our small marketing budget.
Yeah, I would think you would have a waiting list. What a great program this is! Just people, you know, that you don't have. You're asking us for more money to get back into our neighborhoods, and it just because people don't know about it, in my opinion, because your program's fantastic.
Right. And part of that we manage by where we lend, right? Because
Yeah.
we
No, I
know
understand.
that if we go into certain neighborhoods, we burn through our forgivable loan money much faster than we have it. So if you ever want to increase the 2080 agreement, we could definitely expand where we lend in Des Moines. It's just that restraint that we have to always keep an eye on, that we're not putting out more money that we can, because we never want to be in a position that in 5 years we're saying, oh my gosh, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would
Okay.
just add that Stephanie, that NFC does is participate in neighborhood association meetings,
We do.
which
Okay,
is,
Linda's had her hand up.
Oh,
so
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Great job, Stephanie, and my daughter has used your program recently, and it works really well. I'm delighted that you're in so many of our neighborhoods over in Ward 2. And let's talk about getting into one of the Realtor breakfasts soon.
Okay.
So we'll
Okay.
do that.
Great. Yes, we're always looking for and we do. Thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. We attended, I think, 114 neighborhood events last year. So we too try to. All the staff are assigned to a few neighborhoods, so we were in contact with them, putting things in their newsletters.
Yeah, that's helpful. But I mean, as we all know, we all
Right.
go to the neighborhood meetings.
Right.
It's a small portion
It is.
of the amount of folks that really need it, and need to figure out a way to get it to those folks that really need it.
Yes.
And sometimes the ones that really need it aren't the ones that are going to the meeting.
that's right.
Right.
Yes.
No, you're absolutely right.
But we do find that word of mouth is our families, friends, and realtors are our three main ways that people learn about us. Thank you so much for this
you.
opportunity and for your support.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Amber, give us an update on Viva East Bank.
Thanks, Diane. Good morning. Continuing on our neighborhood theme this morning, we just figured we would bundle them all together for you. My name is Amber Lynch. I'm a senior planner in the Community Development Department and the overall project manager for Viva East Bank. It's been about a year and a half since we shared a progress update with you on Viva East Bank, and so we thought we just had our annual meeting to share our 2016 accomplishments with our partners and supporters about a week and a half ago, and figured it was a good time to come back and share that progress with you as well. So just as a reminder, Viva East Bank is the implementation phase for 3 of our neighborhood plans in Capitol Park, Martin Luther King Jr. Park, and Capitol East. This has been a bit of a special situation for us because we've been working on Plan DSM and the new zoning ordinance. We have not had a new round of neighborhoods that we've been doing planning with, and so that's allowed us to devote some extra staff resources towards the implementation phase in these 3 neighborhoods. The other thing that we have coming up, which is another reason why we've sort of paused that neighborhood planning for the moment, is we're getting ready later this year to do an evaluation of the neighborhood revitalization program as a whole. And so I think this Viva East Bank experience is something that our staff will certainly be keeping in mind as we go through the evaluation of that program. We've been working under 4 different priority areas that were identified through those 3 neighborhood plans. So housing, of course, residential being a large component of all of our neighborhoods. Infrastructure and public spaces, which includes our parks and recreational amenities. Business districts. We have the East University, East 14th, and East Grand corridors all go through these 3 neighborhoods. And then community building and programming, which is really more about the people who are living in these neighborhoods and supporting them through events that connect neighbors with one another, and then programs that serve the youth in the area, focus on some adult education, and then health and wellness. Just to give you sort of the headline of the presentation, in 2016 we saw another almost $4 million invested into just these 3 neighborhoods. And that brings our overall total to date to a little over $13.2 million. That's a pretty significant investment that we've had in a very short amount of time. So that's really exciting for us. I'll go through each of the priority areas just very briefly and give you a sense of what we've done. Under housing, there are just over 2,200 or just around 2,200 residential properties in the 3 neighborhoods. When we started here, 1 out of every 5 of those was in below normal or worse condition, at least according to the assessor's rating. We've done a little over 300 housing projects, and some of those homes we've touched more than once with minor repair projects, but it's been about 14 or 15% of the housing stock, the residential housing stock, that we have made some sort of repair all the way up to full gut rehabs, and then of course demolishing public nuisance structures and replacing them with new homes. Our main focus has really been on owner occupancy, either existing owner-occupied structures and repair projects to serve those families, or single-family new construction or acquisition rehab intended for home ownership. We still are seeing issues with the rental property conditions in the neighborhoods, specifically in Capitol Park. Capitol Park is more than 50% renter occupied in terms of its housing units. Also contract sales, there are a lot of contract sales in these 3 neighborhoods, and then just generally kind of deferred maintenance. So, this is one of those areas where the change is going to be long-term and little by little, but we are certainly starting to see an impact after the last couple of years. Infrastructure and public spaces, this is an area where the city has had a huge investment, mainly through the NERP program. We've had a little bit more than $3.1 million in NERP funds that have gone to these 3 neighborhoods over the last couple of years. We'll have a little more again here in 2017. But as you can see, we've done a lot. We've had over 4 miles of new sidewalk that's been poured, either repair to existing, and we've actually been able to install new sidewalk where we've had gaps in the network, and that's provided really important connectivity to the parks and the schools, especially in the MLK neighborhood. These types of investments, they're really it's that visible public investment that starts to inspire confidence in the future of this area. It says that, the city cares about this place, and so maybe I should invest a little bit into my home as I can too. Or maybe it's worth buying a home in this area and fixing it up a little bit. A lot of the park work that we've done, there are 7 parks in the 3 neighborhoods, and we have worked in 5 out of those 7. And we've upgraded several of the playgrounds, and all of that work has been accomplished through public-private partnerships with our Parks Department and then outside community organizations. And I'll talk about one of those projects a little bit later. In business districts, this is an area where it's been a little bit slow to start, mainly because it's kind of a longer term strategy. We expect the change on these corridors to be longer term, and we've been waiting for some of the citywide efforts to kind of line themselves up, like Plan DSM, and identifying the nodes and corridors through that effort, and then the new Traffic and Transportation Master Plan and some other things. But in the meantime, we've been focusing on what we can do to support the existing businesses that are in this area. We have a lot of minority-owned businesses in these neighborhoods. Many of them are Latino-owned. And so we've been able to support them by hiring a contractor through ISU Extension who is bilingual and has been able to kind of help some of those business owners troubleshoot through various things, ranging from challenges with their landlord or code enforcement issues to financial kind of bookkeeping type things, and then social media marketing, those types of efforts. Both NFC and NDC have been strong partners for us in Viva East Bank, and Abby mentioned their La Placida development that was sold to a private investor in 2015, towards the end of 2015, which to us just says that there's a growing confidence in this area on the part of the private market. Community building and programming, this is an area where when I did my presentation the other week, I think it was at least 3 or 4 slides long, just listing all of the different programs and events that we've had going on in these 3 neighborhoods. But I boiled it down. It's really been in 3 kind of major focus areas. Youth programming, that was the #1 thing that we heard when we went out to these neighborhoods through the planning process, is they really wanted more programs for their kids to participate in after school, in the summertime, to have safe and structured places for their kids to be. We've been really fortunate to have a great partnership with Des Moines Public Schools in this area, and I think our best success with these programs have been establishing things that are either located at the schools or are in partnership with the schools to draw families in. I really do want to emphasize the importance of this area in these particular neighborhoods for our revitalization effort, though. I think it's easy for us to think about revitalization in terms of just the physical aspects of a neighborhood, but in areas like this, there are a lot more complex issues that are going on, and the last time that we did an evaluation of our revitalization program, there was a recommendation that talked about investing more in the people. And I would say that's something that we've really tried to do in response to the goals that these residents set. We have some issues here that are pretty tough. There's higher than average unemployment in these neighborhoods, a lot of poverty, food insecurity, crime. And these types of issues tend to manifest themselves. They reflect in the built environment. And so you see that in some of the deterioration in the housing stock and in the building conditions. It just adds another layer of complexity to the work, but it's also some of the most rewarding parts of it when you start to interact more with the people who are living in these neighborhoods and really understand what you can do to try and help them have the highest quality of life possible. Just in 2016 alone, we had over 3,100 volunteer hours just in this area, and so that does not include all of the volunteer hours spent on housing with the Habitat projects. And then we've had a little over $120,000 invested into programs and events in the 3 neighborhoods. When you start to layer all of that together, it becomes a little bit cluttered on a map. And I will say that for the community programs and events, we chose not to have multiple dots because it just made it even more unreadable. You'll see that there's a higher concentration in the MLK neighborhood than in the other 2. That's because we really started our implementation work there while we were still in the planning phase. And so those investments began to happen back in 2012, whereas the other 2, it was after plan approval in 2014. Still, I think it's you can see how far we've come in a short amount of time. One of the other things that happened in 2016 is Viva East Bank has started to gather quite a bit of recognition in the community. We were honored with the Community Foundation's Better Together Award back in May of last year, so just about a year ago, which recognizes coalitions that are, or collaborative projects that are working to solve complex social issues in the community. The other thing is United Way's Opportunity Plan, which is the plan to reduce poverty in central Iowa, has highlighted Viva East Bank as a model worthy of replication in other high poverty areas. And then Capital Crossroads, their 2.0 strategy under the Capital Core, has also recommended putting together a model program toolkit based on the work that we've done with Viva East Bank. So I think, that's made me kind of take a step back and think about why are we being seen in this way out in the community? It's certainly flattering, but, what is it about this project that is making us so successful? And I think, for me personally, one of the greatest things that we've achieved through all of this, we have nearly 30 partner organizations that have committed to this work voluntarily. I think one of our biggest successes that I'm seeing is that web of connections that we're building through this, and that continues to grow all of the time. And we see it among partner organizations that might be doing similar things in the community but didn't know each other previously. We see it among partner organizations that are doing very different things in the community and have come together to work on one project. And then we see neighborhood residents that are building relationships with organizations in the community and beginning to learn how to access a lot of the resources that are available to them. And it's really those relationships that are going to last beyond the end of this project, because at some point Viva East Bank will go away, but those relationships and that knowledge of how to connect with those resources, that's going to last beyond this and help us all as we move forward. One example of those partner collaborations, this was a project that happened this past fall, and it was a Rebuilding Together Meredith Workday project. This is the third year in a row that Meredith Corporation has chosen to work in the Viva East Bank neighborhoods as part of their Rebuilding Together Day. And then, of course, it was a collaboration with our Parks and Recreation Department, too. They did a major overhaul on Redhead Park, which all of you visited just prior to this playground going in when we dedicated the shelter to Nadine Hogate. This was just such a cool project because it really lifts up the history of the park. That used to be a Barnum and Bailey Circus campground, as well as a Civil War campground, and then of course has ties with the Wesley Redhead family. So they really did an amazing job of lifting up that history and coming together to create a place and a new identity for this park that is just a much more memorable experience for the people who come here.
It's full of people now, too.
It is.
I know it is.
And it was well used before, and so, having updated equipment in there just makes all the difference in the world. And you can sort of see the basketball court was painted with a mural. This was an idea one of our project management teams saw in Detroit when they were there for a NeighborWorks training and suggested it to Meredith. They were all about it. They had kids at Capitol View Elementary kind of give inspiration for the design, and then also kind of played up on that circus theme. So just a really, really cool project. The other project that I wanted to highlight before I wrap up here is Fuel Up First, which is the breakfast program that we started at the beginning of the school year at East High School. And this was another one of those things that really came together because of the relationships that have been built through this project. We had one of our NBSD officers, Sergeant Lori Neely, was looking at crime statistics and noticed kind of an unusual pattern of juvenile crime being up on Monday mornings. And one of her colleagues said, well, I bet they're hungry. And knowing what we do about the demographics of the area, that made a lot of sense. And so she mentioned that at one of our community programming partners meetings, and organizations very quickly came on board. We had a relationship with Salvation Army. They offered to bring their canteen truck. And so every Monday of this school year at 6 a.m., we have police officers and community volunteers that show up to serve breakfast. And on the first Monday, I think we served 60-some students, and last week it was over 1,000.
It's awesome.
So that has certainly been the breakout star of the year. We've also had council members. Councilmember Westergaard is there nearly every week. She's been wonderful about drumming up donations to the program, as well as Supervisor Hawkinsmith and school board member Connie Bozen. We've not only had local businesses step up with monetary donations, but also with food. Hy-Vee provides 250 servings twice a month, every month for this past school year, and Northern Lights Pizza is doing the same once a month. So we're, as the school year wraps up and we move into the summer, looking at ways that we can sustain this program into the future. But one of the exciting things is that we are seeing crime going down on Monday mornings, and attendance is going up on Monday mornings. Outside of that, as sort of data that you can quantify, I think the best part about this program has been to watch the relationships change between the kids and the volunteers who are there every morning. Not only are we seeing perceptions change from the student perspective of, they're making eye contact and saying thank you and grateful to see the volunteers there, and it's changing their minds a little bit about police officers and just adults in their community, but also the other way around. I think we've had volunteers that come back week after week after week, and some of them are longtime neighborhood residents, and so whereas someone may have seen those high school kids as sort of contributing to the problems of their neighborhoods, now I think they're seeing them in a different light. So this has been a really cool project too. In terms of what's next, we see that Viva East Bank will probably be around for at least a few more years. And so in addition to continuing all of the things that we have been doing that I mentioned previously, we have a few issues that we want to turn our attention to in 2017 more specifically. One being that access to healthy food and doing a little bit more in that area. Also, outreach to diverse populations, that continues to be a challenge for us. There's a lot of diversity in these three neighborhoods, a lot of non-English speaking families, and so looking for ways that we can continue to better connect with them and understand their needs and be able to respond to those needs. Building sustainability and youth programming, funding for that can fluctuate, and so trying to do what we can to, we've had several programs that have become consistent over the last several years, so we want to make sure that they can continue to be consistent programs to serve these families on into the future. We're involved in several sort of pedestrian safety and walkability studies. One of those is Connect Downtown comes up into these neighborhoods. The boundaries of that are East University and East 14th. And then, of course, we have the Step It Up effort, too, which the mayor has been a part of that project. So we'll be looking forward to seeing those recommendations and what we can do to improve walkability. We've done a lot of the major infrastructure improvements like park upgrades, and so we're turning our attention to more of the small scale things like public art and just those small beautification placemaking projects. With housing, while we'll continue to do what we've been doing, we're also turning our attention a little bit more intentionally to education efforts around financial literacy, home buyer education, and then also home maintenance education. In Capitol Park specifically, we want to work on a few more strategies to improve the rental housing conditions, and code enforcement will certainly be an important part of that. We're looking at developing corridor plans for East University and East Grand Avenue, pulling in the information that's being gathered through the walkability studies and the transportation master plan. And then working with some of the existing business owners on facade improvements to their properties. There are a number of ways to stay in touch with the project. Of course, we have a website, Facebook page, Twitter. I think there's an Instagram account that I don't have up here, but I'm sure you could search it. And then I just have a number of people to say a quick thank you to. We have a couple of our steering committee members here. Councilmember Westergaard joined our steering committee last year. Lance Henning is out in the audience from Habitat, and then Chris Johansson has been on our steering committee. They've been great at helping with ideas for fundraising, troubleshooting, and generally keeping me in line. We've had a really dedicated core group of neighborhood residents that have been with us since we were in the planning phase, and that those leadership positions kind of continue to grow and expand. While I take the lead on the project management, we have a team of people that have been working with us, dedicated from various partner organizations, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of having this dedicated staff. None of this work would be getting done if we didn't have that dedicated staff to do the coordination and the convening and sort of keeping everything on track. We've got a number of great partner organizations. All of them have committed to this initiative on a voluntary basis. We are not, we're providing funding in some ways, fundraising grants on a project-by-project basis, but really they're committed to Viva East Bank because they believe it aligns with their mission and they see an opportunity to carry out their mission in these neighborhoods. And they believe, as we do, that it's much easier and we can make a much greater impact if we all work together. Of course, we couldn't do this without funding, and the City of Des Moines has certainly been one of our major funders. I was hoping I would have the breakdown of sort of the public-private funding, but I need to do a little bit more work on our previous years before I can get to that. But we know we've had, the $3 million of NERP and then quite a bit in the housing area as well. So I would say the city investment has been upwards of $4 million. And then just one final closing thought, and then I'm happy to take any questions you might have. I think it's just important to remember that change in neighborhoods like this is not going to happen overnight, particularly the kind of change that we're hoping to achieve. It's much more incremental in nature. It takes a long time for us to build trust in these neighborhoods. But neighborhood planning and work like this, it's really kind of a unique opportunity for us to discover the needs of our citizens in a very localized way. And it gives us a chance to align our resources to effectively deliver services to respond to those needs. And I don't just mean the City of Des Moines, but the community as a whole. The City of Des Moines is not very well equipped to do a lot of youth programming other than through our parks recreation programming. And so we really had to reach out in that area and understand what else was out there and what partners we could bring in from the community. That being said, I do think that one of the reasons why Viva East Bank has been so successful is because the city has been the lead driver of this project. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you for your continued support of this work, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have anything?
I will just say thank you, Amber. You do a great job leading the group, and it's really, really a good program.
Thanks.
And hopefully we can get an update a little more frequently than every 18 months.
Fair enough.
This is great work.
We can do that. Thank you.
All right. We'll open it up for any public comment, discussion. Anybody need any clarification, anything? Well, seeing none, let's call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending.